Hi, my name is Frank Schaefer. Former president of the United States has just been indicted, a first in history. And that is because Donald Trump himself is a first in history. What makes him unique? And that is his base, the only base that got him elected, the base without which he is nothing, were white American right-wing evangelical voters. Without that base, this would not be happening. I want to take a slightly different angle than I think a lot of commentators will, and look at why white American evangelicals not only took to Trump, but were able to look the other way on their so-called family values and everything else, so that you have the supreme irony that this first indictment, because there will be others, he has a long history in crime in this country, and it just depends how far people want to dig, that this first indictment was because he paid off a porn star for an extramarital affair, having already been married 3 times, the same man that bragged about groping a woman, the same man accused by some of Jeffrey Epstein's victims of being involved in schemes to have sex with underage minors. That this man became the hero of the evangelical community bewilders people, and the indictment can only be explained, and the kind of bookending of irony can only be understood by looking at something. What was the first thing that happened after he's indicted? Well, Lindsey Graham goes on television begging MAGA Trump followers, that would be white evangelicals, to send Trump money. And of course, this has been his response to everything: send me money. And then he spends that on himself or paying off legal debts or whatever it may be, even though he claims to be a billionaire, which is just another one of his lies. But the money game is what it's all about. And of course, as someone who comes from an evangelical background myself, I'm 70 years old, been around the block on this, I recognize in Lindsey Graham's tear-filled appeal for money, cashing in on even an indictment for paying off a porn star to evangelical donors, because that's who they are, in the most part, exactly the same tactic used by, for instance, the televangelist Oral Roberts, who climbed into his quote-unquote prayer tower, said he would not only not come down unless they sent him $3 million that day, but that God had told him he would die. This is the same thing that has replicated across the evangelical world for decades. Why have evangelicals embraced a con man and an abuser like Donald Trump? Because they have been trained to do so by their own pastors. That evangelicals have looked at the most corrupt president in American history and said, he's one of our own. Well, they've been groomed to do this for 2 reasons. One, they reject facts and always have. Every single evangelical child has been raised on conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories like trust the Bible, not science. The world is conspiring to make us trust science instead of the Bible. Conspiracy theories like you don't have to worry about climate change because we know something different. We have an inside view, a kind of a QAnon vision. Jesus is about to come back. Conspiracy theories about the state of Israel, that this somehow is fulfilling quote unquote prophecy. And so never mind the Palestinians, never mind what's good for the world, never mind any treaties. They have to populate greater Israel, including all of the West Bank, or Jesus can't come back. It's an alternative view of history where everything that doesn't fit in with it is rejected as, hey, fake news, fake facts, fake science. You have this groomed group of people, speaking of grooming, from childhood in homeschool movement, Christian schools, Christian colleges, Christian high schools, churches galore, that have learned to do 2 things. 1, tolerate the most corrupt, venal, greedy, thieving leaders on earth. Outside of maybe the mullahs of Iran, evangelicals take the cake. And then on the other hand, reject facticity, science, provable objective facts like paying off Stormy Daniels or whatever as somehow part of a conspiracy to put Christians down and to persecute them. And then one last little secret. Christians love people who find someone to pick on as bullies. So it can be women, take away their health care, take away their reproductive freedom, take away their bodily autonomy, or it can be Black people. Right now, for the next 2 minutes, it's the trans community, but That will wear off, and then it'll be the next group of people, maybe Jews, maybe the anti-Semitism already percolating under the surface of the Trump movement is going to burst out, and then Jews will get their turn again to be these folks' targets. But let's not forget, the big story of Trump's indictment is not Trump. It's the people who put him in power. And the people who put him in power are white, evangelical, right-wing Christians. That's the only reason Trump was ever president. The deals he made with people in the evangelical movement, the leaders, like Franklin Graham, to put him in power, to get the judges they wanted, et cetera, paying off handsomely. Roe has been reversed. But stop asking, how can they have family values and endorse this criminal? He's one of their own, quite literally. He's corrupt. He's going to use this for fundraising. And one last thing, like all mobsters, he is using the threat of indictment, and now he has been indicted, like a mobster would, to say, well, we'll kill the judge, we'll tamper with the jury. Not just veiled threats, open threats. There will be blood in the streets if I'm indicted, standing with a baseball bat, looking at the judge who might indict him. Two historical memories. And that was that in Germany, in the rise of National Socialism in the 1930s that culminated in 1933, with Hitler becoming the leader of Germany, the threat of violence was always there. If we don't have a leader to give us order, there will be blood in the streets. Secondly, in Italy, during the Red Brigade's time, the threat of violence was there. They killed politicians they disagreed with. Thirdly, in Italy, when the mob was first really attacked, as they hadn't been for a century in the 1970s and 80s, they found a car packed with explosives outside of the Uffizi Gallery that houses Botticelli's Primavera, Birth of Spring, and all these masterworks, and were within minutes of blowing the entire museum up in revenge for arresting their leaders. Mobsters use this technique. So last of all, congratulations, evangelicals. Your leader is a philandering groper, accused of rape credibly by numerous women. That wasn't enough. He's indicted for paying off a porn star. We have the signed check. We know what happened. You still embrace this man because he's very much like your own evangelical mega pastor and televangelist leaders. And what's he doing? Begging for money. That should be familiar. When anybody presents the facts, what's he doing? Playing the evangelical game. It's a conspiracy against evangelicalism. What is the bully doing? Now saying he's a victim. And if that's not enough, threatening violence. Nixon didn't do that, by the way. Nixon never called people into the streets and threatened bloodshed if something happens to me. Even he drew that line. Congratulations, you elected the worst president in American history. This one's on you, evangelicals. Thank you. My name is Frank Schaefer.